I'm going to just say a few simple things about bio-based degradable plastics and provide a background for the expert manufacturing speakers who are going to talk later on. The first thing I want to do is explain why I'm here. I represent the British Plastics Federation. It's the leading trade association for plastics in the UK. It was originally founded in 1933, and originally it was an organisation for moulders of thermosetting plastics, moulders of bakelite. And as the range of applications of plastics has increased over the years, so the range of the organisation has also increased. And today we have 20 constituent business groups which actually make up the British Plastics Federation. And the most recently created of these groups is one called the Bio-based and Degradable Plastics Group, and that was founded in the year 2009. So why did we actually set up a bio-based and degradable plastics group? Well, I think the main factor was that there was considerable interest in these materials building up amongst major end users, in particular the UK retailers, motor manufacturers, and so on. And at the same time, we found that there was sort of confusing amount of information available about these materials and their performance. And there was, to some extent, conflicting messages coming from the industry on property capabilities and appropriate applications for the materials. And we felt that there was a need for the industry to have an authoritative platform for professional companies in the sector to enable them to agree basic things like terminology. What do we mean by bioplastics? What do we mean by degradability? And terms like compostability. And we felt that there was a need for high standards of communication to be agreed by the players in the industry, and to enable us to promote effectively, scientifically proven data about the materials. And today we have about 9 members. They are A&O Thornpack, BASF, Colloids, EPI Europe, the National Non-Food Crop Centre, which is a very knowledgeable organisation based in York, is a member, Novamont, Omnia, Symphony Environmental, and Wells Plastics. So what are the key drivers behind the interest in these materials? Now, I guess the first one is a fear and apprehension that is felt all over the globe, and that is climate change and the need to reduce CO2 generation. We've also experienced over recent years the escalating price of oil, and quite a lot of commentary that we are, for example, running out of oil, and what are we going to do when oil disappears. We also have fears, and certainly in Europe at the moment there's a lot of debate about the availability, the sheer availability of conventional plastics, which is, again, sort of driving an interest in bio-based materials. And, of course, we have legislation, environmental legislation around the globe, which, again, is pushing forward interest in the materials. And some examples of this, one in the United Arab Emirates, for example, there is a cabinet decree which is looking to phase out non-degradable bags by the year 2013. In Japan, people talk about the greening of Japan. There's been quite a lot of legislation recently which has a strong environmental theme, which is encouraging interest in biomaterials. Legislation, for example, in Japan on green purchasing, on the effective utilisation of resources, and there's been a setting up of a pollutant release transfer register. So all of this is creating a kind of a backdrop for an interest in bio-based materials. And as an organisation, the British Plastics Federation is very enthusiastic about both bio-based materials and degradable materials, because they extend the range of possibilities open to the industry, provide new opportunities to the industry, and provide a widening of the choice available to industry players and to customers. So we see it as these materials as a very, very useful addition to this kind of palette of materials that the industry offers to society. Well, I'm going to try and give you, in a few simple sentences, the current market overview, where we are today. There's a lot of confusing statistical information out there. It's partly confused because the market data tends to bring together under one heading bio-based, biodegradable, degradable plastics all together. But in 2008, Europe was the largest market for bioplastics, and it accounted for some 40% of world demand. And that's estimated to be approximately somewhere between 150,000 and 250,000 tonnes annually. Well, of course, that is a very, very small, at the moment, a very, very small proportion of the overall consumption of plastics worldwide. Certainly in Europe, it accounts for less than 1% of the total European plastics market. Europe there's a lot of bio-based degradable plastics products in Europe. One estimate is there's some 1,600 commercial products based on these materials in Europe. In Japan and Australia, it's been estimated that there's something like 1,200 products available. In the United States and Canada, possibly more than 600 products available. The European countries with the highest demand are Germany, the UK, France and Italy and the Netherlands, which is not really surprising because they are the largest economies in Europe. But they're also being increasingly used in individual applications in some of the smaller countries like Norway, Austria, Spain and Switzerland. And you can see here this pie chart gives a bit more definition for that, with demand in Germany in 2008 being around 22,000 tonnes. In the UK, in contrast, something like 9,000 tonnes. Another reason why bio-based materials are a bit of interest is because there is so much of the potential feedstock for their manufacture actually available. It's been estimated that the world biomass production is something like 170 trillion tonnes, a huge figure, of which only 3% is actually utilised. Of that 3%, 6 billion tonnes, we actually find that 62% of it is actually used for food, 33% for wood, which is used for energy purposes, manufacturing paper, building products, and 5% for non-food use, such as clothing or manufacture of chemicals. I think quite a lot of commentators have indicated that bioplastics will assume a significant part of oil-based chemistry. This is just one forecast from DSM, which is of course a manufacturer of conventional plastics, which is confidently expecting a substantial increase, as you can see from the dotted line curving upwards at the end of that chart. If you look at the capacity growth for bio-based plastics, again, there's a whole range of forecasts here put onto one chart, and all of them are forecasting really quite significant leaps in capacity growth. If we look at the future, again, there's a whole variety of prognostications which have been forecast by a variety of commentators. Freedonia, for example, say that global demand for bioplastics will increase fourfold to 900,000 tonnes in 2013. European Bioplastics, which is a trade body in Europe, is forecasting production capacity to increase from 360,000 tonnes in 2007 to 2.3 million tonnes by 2013. Another forecast is that by 2013 the market in Europe will be growing by 30%, over 30% annually. And that will compare with 39.1% in Asia Pacific, which is obviously a major growth area for these materials, 27.2% in North America, and a global average of 35.1%. Of course, the applications for bioplastics are widening, and success will not just be based on compostable types, but also on durable types. And there is an increasing demand, as I'll illustrate later, for bio-based plastics in electrical and automotive applications. Turning to oxo-biodegradable plastics. In the UK, we have, I'll just illustrate this with some examples from the UK. There are 3 leading manufacturers, Wells, Symphony and EPI. And this is not a new technology. It's been around for over 30 years. A lot of work's been carried out in the UK. The names of Gerald Scott, Professor Scott of Aston University was working on this back in the 1960s and 70s. Other famous names of Jerry Griffin. And basically, it's led to the development of polymer-based oxo-biodegradable master batches containing pro-oxidants and reaction enhancers and modifiers. And largely, these are used in the polyolefin films industry, but there are some other applications as well. Just to give you some specific examples of use, supermarket checkout bags, quite an important application. Bubble wrap for protective packaging from delicate components. Food netting, for example, for the collation and packaging of fruit like oranges and apples. The manufacture of refuse bags, everybody's familiar with. Use in food bags. And of course, agricultural mulch film. The expectation is that the materials will fragment over a period of time. Looking at some engineering applications of bio-based polymers, I thought it would be interesting to look at some of these because people tend to focus mainly on packaging. I think one, I mentioned before that Japan is a very interesting place when it comes to bioplastics and its uses, and I think Toyota has been a sort of a pioneer there of innovative uses of bioplastics. And they have a plan to replace 20% of the conventional plastics in their products by using it, sorry, in cars, by using bio-based materials, which is essentially a replacement of some 360,000 tonnes of plastics materials. They were the first manufacturer to use bio-based materials in cars in 2003 for floor mats and spare tyre covers in the Rome small car. A much more recent example is the 2011 Lexus CT200 was launched with a bio-based PET luggage compartment liner. So you can see an increasing use, not just of course of recycled plastics in cars. There's quite a big requirement in Europe and all over the world for using recycled plastics in cars, but also there is an increasing use of bio-based plastics in cars as well. Another example in a different area is Fujitsu launched a computer keyboard, 45% made of conventional plastics, sort of 45% of which is bio-based green IT materials based on lignin and cellulose acetate. And again, another sort of similar example, mobile phones. I think there are now a number of examples of bio-based materials used in mobile phones. I think one of the early ones was in 2006, the former N701, where the casing, for the, I think the market for young ladies, because I think it was produced exclusively in pink, its casing was made from PLA reinforced with canaf fibres. And then, more recently, the Samsung W510 in 2008, its back cover is actually such a speaker will talk about the corporate objective there to replace 25% of conventional plastics with bio-based materials by 2010. There's been a range of hair care, sort of shampoo outlets. In fact, there's one by the National Non-Food Crop Centre, a very expert gentleman called John Williams, about bio-based plastics, and there's also one